Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 1.5 years ago that I visited Lampedusa and spoke on the island to refugees, to people that support refugees, and to officials. This was in a time that the European Union just had started the Operation Triton as follow-up to the Italian Mare Nostrum operation. The European Union had decided not to allocate the same level of resources as the Italians had been spending in search and rescue operations. And due to those budget cuts and the high number of persons... Okay. Yeah. Due to those budget cuts and the high number of persons that tried to reach Italian shores, very many people were drowning. I was struck by the situation in the camp at Lampedusa, by the stories that refugees told me. They told me stories about the situation they had tried to escape, about the cruelties they had suffered when traveling to North Africa, about the merciless traffickers they had found and paid a lot of money in order to be able to embark on a small boat, and certainly also about the fears they had endured on the Mediterranean. When you are 6 hours out of the Libyan shore, and waves are getting higher and higher, when you're getting very cold because of the night temperature and the water in the boat, when one side of the boat starts to deflate, when you're fighting to have a place on the assumed safe side of the boat, when you do not have any water anymore, or when your boat has capsized and you see how some of your fellow travelers are drowning and cannot do anything to help them. It was when documenting this situation with 2 Amnesty colleagues that I had the pleasure and the honor of meeting briefly with Dr. Pietro Bartolo. I was impressed when we met by the stamina, the resilience Dr. Bartolo showed, not so much in speaking, but in practice. And there were 2 things of this visit that I would like to mention specially. The first thing is that when we arrived in his office, we immediately saw one of the walls in the office a picture of Dr. Bartolo and the Pope, or maybe I should say the Pope and Dr. Bartolo. Pope Francis had chosen as his first journey outside the Vatican to visit Lampedusa, a very powerful, important signal to the world, a very encouraging act for those who assist refugees and of course also for refugees themselves. Dr. Bartolo showed us the playroom for children, where they could play during the time their mother was in a separate room for echo in case of pregnancy or for general diagnosis. This room was filled with toys and children could play there and come a bit at ease while their mother was somewhere else, but could take those toys with them to the camp after they left the hospital. And the citizens of Lampedusa made sure there were always enough new toys to accommodate new children. Major Giusy Nicolini told me later that the people in Lampedusa were indeed very supportive to refugees, despite the fact that tourism was going down on the island. But she also stated that she wanted the EU to step up and do more in order to help Lampedusa and also Italy, and not to leave the people of the island and Italy alone in their support for refugees. Well, we've seen now, after 1.5 years, the EU has done a lot since then, but unfortunately more aimed at deterring refugees than at protecting refugees. At this moment, there is, despite all kinds of efforts of organizations, the EU seems to be more engaged in building walls, in building fences, than in protecting refugees. And the EU seems to be in a mood for doing agreements, for closing deals, first with Turkey and now also with Afghanistan, and coming up with Tunisia, Senegal, Mali, Egypt and even Sudan, where the president is wanted by the International Criminal Court because of genocide, and where Amnesty documented last week the use of chemical weapons against his own population. Ladies and gentlemen, I think Lampedusa in general, Dr. Bartolo in particular, are setting an example for Europe. Thank you.